Right, so should we get started? Okay. Yeah. So the first presentation is about some data about July the 4th air pollution contamination in Montana. It's measurement data that the community member have conducted last summer, before, during, and after July 4th held. Uh, Dr. Shahir Masri, he's a research staff in my team. Who's not available. He was supposed to be the one producing the results. So I'm going to present the results for him because he's out of town today. But he is the leader and he is the first author of the paper we have published recently in a journal based on the results that the community members and UCI researchers have conducted last year. So I'm going to go over some of the study design, the results of our study. Next slide. I don't know any of you here have participated in our last field campaign, July the 4th. Anyone raise your hand? No, nobody. Oh, okay. Maybe a few people participated. Good. So basically, we recruited a community member to use the air sensor. The air sensor, I don't know what came from there. You can carry the air sensor. We go into it, and the air quality. Here we use one particular map as an indicator of their quality. And that process can be recorded by the air sensor. The air sensor will record the altitude. And the data or the real-time air quality would be shown up the result. So in that way, you can easily understand air quality, and those data will also be recorded and then analyzed further by our researchers. So that's what we did last year. In Montana, we did 22 days campaign. By the community members, you can see we have 11 days before the first holiday and 10 days to a holiday. Plus, July the 4th holiday, we have a total of 22 days. And we have certain advocacies. And we found the 20 homes. And for the 20 homes, we place advocacies that have outside home. Like in the backyard, like in the bathroom, outside. Together and being outdoor. And then among these 20 homes, some homes we also place the indoor air sensor. So here, the outdoor air sensor with indoor air sensor at 10 of the homes. The purpose of that is we want to understand how much of the outdoor air pollution penetrates indoors. Right? So it is not time to say this. So that's what we did in Montana. And then to complement that sampling campaign, we also found other data, other air sensor data. And this time, the air sensor is called a purple. It's somewhat larger sensor, but still small, but you cannot carry it around. So this other purple air sensor, you can put it indoors or outdoors, and it needs to be charged, and then it's fixed location. So you cannot put it indoors. But it's also small, it's also low cost. And a lot of community members are using the purple air sensor in California and across the world to monitor their air. So that produced a lot of publicly available data for us to compare the Santa Ana data with. Next slide. So, in this study, we looked at air pollution data, outdoors and indoors, and also we compared with the socioeconomic factors across multiple cities. So we looked at the risk ethnicity, percentage of Hispanic, white, and also medium household income and age. Next slide. So this figure just showed you the average fine particulate matter concentration in the air outside. These results are from Santa Ana measurement. So here we show July 4th, July the 5th. And I don't think I have a I don't think I have something to point out, right? But on left side, it's July the 4th, and yeah, the second one is July 5th. And then we also, that's the daily average over 24 hours. And then the third one has peak 24-hour concentration, and then on the left right one is peak 12-hour concentration. So basically, you can see for the July the 4th, definitely the fine particulate matter concentration is over 20 micrograms per cubic meter. And then July the 5th, it's a little bit less than 15. And then look at the line there. There's dotted line there for the non-holiday baseline. So that one is generally the concentration if we don't have biolocation. So low concentration is 8.5 micrograms per milliliter. Okay, 8.5. And then you can see, especially when you compare the peak 12 hours, that's from 7 p.m. on July to 7 a.m. on July the 5th, 12 hours of the peak concentration. That's around 12 in comparison to 8.5 micrograms per milliliter of fine particulate matter. That's a lot of increase of air pollution due to firework emission, right? There's dramatic difference. Okay, next slide. So this shows you different monitoring concentrations that are over 24 hours across the monitoring time. As you can see, do you see that huge peak? Okay, so that huge peak occurred on July the 4th. Okay, the red line is pre-July the 4th, and the blue line are the post-July the 4th. And that black is June. Huge peak. And also, it started from 7 p.m. Like people started to burn the fireworks. And then the highest concentration reached around 180 micrograms per milliliter, right? Around 9-ish p.m. So that means the firework emission dramatically increase the fine particulate matter concentration in the air, right? And we will this is not like the lecture we're going to talk about why PM2.5 is bad to our health. Previously, we have a number of workshops, seminars to talk about the adverse health impact of fine particulate matter. So here, just to summarize that, fine particulate matter has a lot of adverse health impact. You cannot see that, but those fine particles can easily get inhaled through your nose, through your respiratory tract, get deposited into your lung, further penetrate your lung, get your blood system, and then you carry around your body through circulation. And this also very fine particles can carry a lot of other air toxics, such as organic matter, metals, and other things on top on the surface of particulate matter, which cause a lot of harm to your health. So fine particulate matter has been associated with a lot of health outcomes such as exacerbation in symptoms, onset of asthma, reduced lung function, adverse pregnancy outcomes, neurological outcomes, cancer. So there's a lot of established evidences up there. That's why it's very important to see this huge peak of air pollution due to the firework emission. So you can raise questions anytime. Do you have any questions so far? Okay. Okay, next slide. All right, so I mentioned that for 10 homes, both outdoor and indoor sensors were installed. So what are the results shown here? You can see there are 10 sensors here, and on the left side is indoor pollution level. On the right side is outdoor pollution level. And in general, outdoor levels are higher than the indoor levels, right? The left side you see it's lower concentrations, right? On the right side, the outdoor we have higher concentrations. So in general, the outdoor concentration is higher than indoors, which is good because most of our time is spent indoors, and we want our indoor concentration to be low. And we want our indoor envelope, our building envelope, to be protected of our health, to reduce the outdoor pollution levels. So this is good. However, I'll show later that it can be better. So you would want the left side indoor concentrations to be even lower, despite the outdoor high concentrations. Next. Okay, so this one showed you some purple air sensor data, not only in Santa Ana, but also in other cities. And here we picked all the cities with purple air sensor data in Orange County. So not all the cities in Orange County have purple air sensor data. So here, I think it's around 24 out of 34-ish cities that have purple air sensor data. And we also ranked the outdoor pollution levels by the city. As you can see, the highest occurred at La Habra, followed by Blue and Fullerton and Santa Ana. And you can see Santa Ana is one of the highest polluted cities. And also you can see there is a dramatic difference of the pollution levels. If you look at the highest level, it's over 60, right? At the very left. And then if you look at the lowest level, it's well below 10, right? So there's a large variation in the pollution levels across the cities. And you can also see these stars. There are 7 stars there. What does that mean? The star here represents the cities which policy or city policy allows for the street firework to be sold and then to be used. So most of the time you can see the city where the street fireworks are allowed to be sold and to be used, you have relatively high situation. There are exceptions, like La Habra and Bru are exceptions because those cities may be downwind of the other cities which have, allowed to be the fireworks to be there. Okay, so you also see the line, the blue line and the red line there. And I think there was a series 1, series 2. I think it's mislabeled. But series 2 should represent the white percentage of white population, while the red line there represents percentage of Hispanic population. So basically, you can see the higher on average, the higher the diffusion levels at the city level, the higher the percentage of Hispanic population. And the opposite is true for the percentage of white population, right? The blue. So the thinner, the lower the concentration of air pollution, and the higher percentage of the white population. Any questions? Okay. What the where we want the things are with higher the name of that it's very small. La Habra, Peru, Florida, Santa Ana, Luna Park, Cypress, Ugalinda, Anaheim, Villa Park, Costa Mesa. So that's by the sequence. Okay. Okay. So, yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. So, all the ratings there for the one. Yeah, what can we do about it? Maybe can you go to the next few slides to see what we can do about it? Yeah, go to the next. The next. Oh, there's no slide. Okay. Shahir Masri presentation. It's not mine. So I go to the recommendation. So first of all, like I think it depends on whether it's immediate or intermediate or further like a future action. For the intermediate act like this year, what can you do, right? It's very close around the corner. Yeah. So especially if you have like people with asthma, respiratory disease, the recommendation is for inside with your doors and windows really close. And then if you have a clear keys, then you can run the there for inside. If you have a turn to be out to the territories in there, and do not go off. And especially in Santa Ana, there are a lot of street burning fireworks. And I think the whole neighborhood is highly polluted. And they also, if you're very sensitive, then you can like use out wearing the mask. So the mask would help in some. Yeah, you know, I feel for you. Something kind of box, the young, we get people from other fields, that is the yeah. Right. They don't care about being able to get, yes, so I get. What? Don't practice, don't encourage them. Yeah, that's in writing there's very long-term approach. So for the for the rich you aware of that word region. And then those scholars I was impact and fight and the health stuff. And then we can next topic you have campaign. And we can promote some other type of beverage. So sometimes we have to do the fireworks. So we have many ways that we can celebrate. We can have something very different. We can have some other gatherings, more. I never get you the part of the gatherings together. If I don't see them together, you can have somebody from the city too. So I have a question. That particle that are very common. Yes, that's a really good question. She's asking how long the targets can stay in our line. It depends on the situation. Sometimes we stay a long time. Like if the house is into the long time, like it's not the house. I have a picture of a photo of the long resident in living in Los Angeles City. And after many years in living there, and after the person died, if you get the person's lung out, it looks like a heavy smoke. So that means those people can deposit in the lung and stay there for very long. It is getting some. Yeah. There are tips that I can request and I got that head to be tested and see what I have. So I don't know. So the protocol like you are ingredients. But I don't know that how to do the really have to still come to more like there are like protocol mean that we have. And there are protocol with units but it's not like really testing that and design give everyone. And that I can be with they go to the top. So I like thinking, yeah, there's research so really not like it's presentation. Yeah, what do the things like so first of all, this paper has been published. So I think we can put it on some website like the GREEN-MPNA website, and then we can give it to X, right? And then with that evidence, we can for the city, you can write the letters. You can just also or can receive and to voice your concern to the okay, and also people to get GREEN-MPNA is their community that we have looking at giving around having it giving it cash. So this is the map showing the Southern California area. So we zoom out to the larger region. to see, like in terms of perspective, where Santa Ana stands. And those are all the cities with purple air sensor data. And basically the color shows you, the high polluted areas, those are the red colors. Those cities with red colors. And the blue colors are those without much pollution. So as you can see, the county of San Diego, like our neighbor down there, it's all blue because street fireworks was, forbidden there. So they do not allow burning of the fire. Right, that's very clear. That's why they have two there. And then you look at our neighbor in the north side, and you look at LA. Okay, they're doing poorly, right? For LA, there are a number of cities in red, and then also in San Bernardino, there are some cities in red. So this is because in LA, there are a number of cities that allow the very extreme levels. And also those cities burning fireworks also cause a problem for their downwind location. So as you mentioned, they're not just coming to the city because pollution has no boundary. Right? Yeah, so they're also put in other areas. So actually, like in the riverside, there could be, areas due to with high pollution due to the fire pollution upgrade in LA and Orange County. Okay, next slide. So I told you that pollution air quality is important, right? And so I showed you that in Santa Ana, indoor pollution is lower than outdoor pollution during this time period. But does Santa Ana compare to the other parts of Southern California? With those households that have both indoor and outdoor sensors based on the purple air data, and we can compare Santa Ana to the other cities. As you can see, the mean here. Can you point to the mean there? The column on the left side, the in Santa Ana, the mean is 1.1, 1.3. This is the mean of outdoor pollution divided by indoor pollution. So this means in Santa Ana, outdoor pollution is slightly more than indoor pollution, right? But if you look at the other parts of Southern California, and you can see the mean ranged from 3.9 to 7.2. So that means in the other parts of Southern California, the outdoor pollution is so much more than the indoor pollution. Or you can see that in another way, like in the other parts of Southern California, the indoor pollution is so much less than the outdoor pollution. That's good, right? Because we want the indoor air quality to be as best as we can reach to. So that's what I mean. There is still way to improve in Santa Ana. Even though the indoor pollution level were the outdoor, you can compare to the other cities, the other cities that have much lower. So those results indicate that maybe in Santa Ana, a lot of people have their windows open during the July 4th. So that here, like something immediately we can do is that, you have that this knowledge now. Now July 4th, you just shut down your window, right? That will make your indoor language. Okay. Any questions? No. Okay. All right. Um, so these are the results from Firework Study. And we're happy to share with you detailed results and Excel figures and tables. And you can use those as evidence to what see. Okay. No questions. Okay. So the all the solution is less than the effect. One of the one you may I'll solution really bad, but we do the indoor. Yes. Okay, so sometimes there are indoor. So if you go back to the slide with like chemicals, you will see for a couple of homes, their indoor pollution levels are higher than outdoors. Do I have that figure? No. Oh, okay. So no, I don't have that figure. So that's okay. So this is because you have indoor sources. For instance, you do the barbecue at home indoors. I'm doing the barbecue for July the 4th celebration, right? And that will raise your indoor particle level dramatically. If you don't use the fan or the window to let the indoor particles to get out, then the indoor particles will accumulate. And also, if you use your vacuum, if you have carpet at home, and then you use your vacuum to clean, and then that activity just by itself will increase indoor particle level. So when you do the vacuum, just be cautious to wear this. I think a lot of us do that. I mean, doing the vacuum. But I think now we're used to wearing the masks. So it's nice. Now you are aware that those activities can increase the indoor particle level. The next time, just wear the mask. Okay. Any other questions? No. Should we go to the next one? Okay. Yeah. I'll just continue with the next presentation on the industrial zoning as an asthma study in Santa Ana. So next slide. Can you click? Yeah, next. Yeah, so this study was published 2 years ago. And it's teamwork with UCI researchers from the School of Medicine and Public Health. Basically, we looked at the proximity of the children's homes and schools to the industrial zone, and also used their school records to look at their asthma health and their school performance. So this study was driven by the community concerns about their children's respiratory health, and especially in the children living in the Madison Park Neighborhood Association. And they are close to industrial pollution. I don't know whether you're aware of the industrial pollution. The east side of Santa Ana, and it's right across the Madison Park neighborhood. Next slide. So here, our concern is that there are multiple emission sources in Santa Ana. There are some major ones, especially the industrial emissions, and also there are major freeways and highways and some major arterial roads that put a lot of traffic exhaust here, as shown in this photo here. And all of those can generate a fine particulate matter and many other air toxics that can cause adverse health outcomes. Next slide. So why do we have concern about asthma? Because asthma has serious impact, especially in children, and it can cause coughing within and tightness in the chest, and under very severe conditions can lead to death. And also asthma is very common in our population. And in California, there's over 1.2 million children with asthma. And a lot of times the children's asthma symptoms are not very controlled. So next slide. This shows you the age-adjusted pediatric emergency room visit data due to asthma in Orange County. You can see the green area is the best performance area with the lowest pediatric emergency room visit, while the yellow area is the relatively poor or with higher pediatric emergency room visit. While the red, okay, you can see the red area, that's the area with the highest percentage of pediatric emergency room visits due to asthma. So where is this red area? You can recognize here as a resident in Santa Ana, right? So this is really close to the light industry corridor, and this is right in the Madison Park neighborhood. So, and compared to the average, the average rate of pediatric emergency room visit is about 40 per 10,000 children. And in this red area, the rate is about 92. So it's twice, it's more than twice of the average. Okay, next slide. So our study aimed to examine the relationship between industrial zone proximity and asthma prevalence. And also we wanted to look at whether that proximity to the emission sources of industrial emissions and the freeway emissions is associated with academic performance, with obesity in children, and with the physical fitness scores of children. All of those, we can get the data from the speed records. Next slide. This one is a bit busy. So on the right, you can show the figure where the study region is in terms of California and in Orange County. Mainly we focus in Santa Ana. And we got the school records from the school district for children in 2018 to 2019. And those include a lot of data, which school the kids attend, the grade, the age, sex, Hispanic ethnicity, parents' education, whether they are qualified for meal reduction, reduced lunch, and the home address, and their zip code of the home address. This also includes the children's body mass index, their asthma diagnosis based on the parental report, and the medical or the health appointment related absence. It also includes the fitness score and their academic test scores for their math and English language. Okay, next slide. So this just shows you how we select our sample. We started with all the records in that 1 year, and this is over 48,000 children's records. And then we further clean up our data by excluding some of the children that do not attend the school, like half of the time, or their address cannot be putting on the map, or they just put the wrong address. So you cannot use the address in your study. So after excluding all of those, we get around 39,000 records in our study. That's still a very big number. Next slide. So this shows you the industrial zones and the freeways. For those of you who are familiar with Santa Ana, you can see this green on the left side. These green areas are industrial zones. And then on the right figure, you can see the freeway name. So basically, there are quite a number of the industrial zones that are very close to the residential areas. The next slide. So, we did the now. We first based on the residential addresses, we mapped this address. We get the coordinates, latitude and longitude coordinates of each home, and then we map them, and then we calculate the distance from each home to the industrial zone. And we also mapped all the schools and calculate the distance from schools to the industrial zone, to each of the industrial. And then we also considered like how much time like children stay in home versus in school, and we weighted the distance. We gave more weight for home because children spend more time at home, right? We assume that they spend 7 hours in school during the weekdays. So that's how we come up with a measure of distance to the industrial zone and distance to the freeway. And then we use the statistical models and adjusted some potential factors that may affect their exposure, and they also affect their outcome. So we controlled those factors. Next slide. Okay, can you click? Because I have some circles, these are too busy. So yeah, so basically if you compare children with asthma versus without asthma, children with asthma are like more in males. Next. And then children with asthma have more overweight of obese child. And then they also have a higher rate of failing aerobic test, their fitness test. Next. So, children with asthma, as expected, they have more medical absences from the school, and also have total number of more absence days at school. So that's all expected for children with asthma. Next. Okay, so this is just a summary that children with asthma were more likely than children without asthma to be male, overweight, fail the aerobic test, but do not academic test. So we did not find the impact of proximity to industrial zone to the academic test, which is good. And then also children with asthma have more school absences. Okay, next. So those are the results from our statistical analysis after controlling for potential confounding factors. Next. Yeah. So this basically shows that the further distance from industrial zone, you have less of the odds in having asthma. So, or in other words, for people who live within very close distance, here our reference line is 0.5 kilometers away from the industrial zone. So for the people who live so close to the industrial zone, the kids developing asthma, in terms of the chance, is about 20% higher than the kids who live more than 1 kilometer away from the industrial zone. So 20% increased risk of developing asthma of those living 0.5 kilometer or 500 meters away from the industrial than those living 1 kilometer away. Okay, next slide. Basically, this is the summary. Yeah, compared to students living more than 1 kilometer away from the industrial region, those living within 1 kilometer had 20% higher. Okay, next slide. Next. Okay, so this looked at the distance to the freeway and highways. And for this one, for kids living close to the freeway and highways in comparison to the kids living the furthest away, which is 3 kilometers away from highways and freeways, the chance of those living close have about 18% of a higher risk in developing asthma. Okay, next. Yeah, the same. Yeah. Okay, so then next we looked at the impact of being in very proximity to the industrial zone and the freeways, and the impact to the children with asthma. So here we are mainly focused on children with asthma. Okay, so they are the most vulnerable population. So among the children with asthma, and does the distance to the industrial zone and distance to freeway have any to their, to their obesity, to their fitness score, to their school academic performance? Okay, so next. So we only found that for children living relatively close to the industrial zone, among those with asthma, the children living close to the industrial zone can be more likely to be overweight and obese. And the good thing is that among those children with asthma, other than obesity, we don't find many other impacts. That's good. Next. So that's the same thing. Next. So industrial zone or freeway proximity was not associated with worse fitness score or with worse academic performance for children with asthma. So basically, we found the impact of proximity to industrial zone and the proximity to the freeways for the asthma prevalence and for obesity, but not for their school academic performance. Okay, so at least I think it's a relief that we know that living close to those, polluters do not have an impact on children's school academic performance, at least based on this 1 year of data that showed us. Okay, next. Okay, so those are just some conclusions that industrial zone or freeway proximity was associated with increased pediatric asthma in Santa Ana. And then among the children with asthma, industrial zone proximity was also associated with a greater likelihood of being overweight or obese. And again, we don't find the association of proximity with school performance, which is good. Okay, next. And the implication is that these results here provide an important context for the intersection of the city planning, zoning policy, and children's asthma health. And this again provide evidence that can be used by the city planners to make decisions on where to place those industrial facilities, or how to control for the for the pollutions from the freeways and highways. And then, and also again, this shows you that the use of the school data, the school district data is very, very helpful and powerful to provide the evidence on the impact of the environmental pollutions to various children's outcomes, children's asthma health, children's absence from the school, and children's performance and other things. So in the future, we really wanted to also work more in the area to, for instance, use more years of data to be more powerful and also to use like a more refined exposure assessment, not just proximity to the emission sources, but we can do more refined exposure estimate of air toxics and fine particulate matter emissions, etc. So there's a lot of work ahead that we can do together. Okay, I guess that's it. Thank you. Any questions for this one? No. All right. I would like to introduce you to Aiden Brown and Dr. They are from the University of
Thanks for having us here. My name, as you said, my name is James Adams, and this is my colleague Aiden Brown, and we are here representing Ecogovlab tonight, which is a social science lab hosted in the Department of Anthropology at UCLA. But we're also here representing a larger collaboration, which the logo between AirUCI, GREEN-MPNA, Ecogovlab, which we are here, and then GREEN-MPNA, which you are all very familiar with. And in that project, which is called the Beyond the Quiet Project, we are sort of deviating from the typical focus of vehicle emissions as we transition away from fossil fuels and move to electric vehicles. There are still going to be emissions coming from the brakes and tires, and right now there's not enough science to understand the health implications of that and what sort of public health threats that these continuing emissions from vehicles might pose. And so in this project, we also partnered with GREEN-MPNA as a local partner, community partner. And as we were preparing and conducting this study, we learned more about GREEN-MPNA's and Santa Ana's larger concerns for much broader environmental justice issues. And so we wanted to be responsive to that, to our community partners' interests. And so we started to sort of broaden our concerns. And today what we'll talk about is a little bit of that broad and sort of building from the wonderful presentations that we just witnessed and all of these sort of great citizen science that work that you all are part of, and producing of all this data on the environmental justice issues here in Santa Ana, and then sort of like trying to figure out strategies for mobilizing that knowledge to then affect environmental governance. Maybe we should actually just okay, yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's good. Oh yeah, can you actually move one more? Okay, so today what we'll actually be talking about is one of our tactics for mobilizing this knowledge, which we've been calling stakeholder meetings. Right? And so here we see we have so like the general idea is that as we have been working to produce all of this data on the sort of health and the environmental challenges that you all have been facing, figuring out a way to mobilize that to then affect some of the regulators as we see here in the actual story. Okay. All right. And so far we've hosted 2 different stakeholder meetings, one on January 31st and another on May 18th. And we kind of wanted to start out by asking how many of you attended one or the other of these meetings? Awesome. And did any of you attend both meetings? Yeah, some of you, a lot of you, many of you. So we wanted to take a moment to ask if any of you are comfortable, if any of you wouldn't mind speaking a little bit about why you showed up to those meetings, like what that participation meant to you, and how and why you saw participating in them as important. Does anyone want to speak about that? Sure. Sure.
Pues aprendimos que no se cada dos venido de ver a los venidos de reír.
Right. And so it was, so then you wanted to be there to see if and how these regulators who are supposed to be invested in these issues maybe would show up or would not. Would you, sir? Yeah.
Si estuvieran presentes más de otras organizaciones, todavía digo que fue una parte del concilio también, no recuerdo si fue muy representante de ellos y también hubo de porque que puedo tomar interés porque vieron que estábamos unidos y queríamos respuestas.
Awesome. Yeah, that's all really important insights that we're actually going to want to build on in our presentation here. And so, yeah, a lot of what we'll be talking about is why we showed up to these meetings as Ecogovlab. And so some of our intentions behind the design of the meetings, and then also how we sort of shifted our strategy a little bit from the first meeting to the second. And then we're going to finish up by kind of asking you all to reflect with us about what has worked in these meetings so far, what hasn't worked so well, and then where we see room for improvement. Next one. Okay, so for both of these meetings, the general strategy was to work with this observation, which you see here on the left, where over half of Santa Ana's neighborhoods are designated as disadvantaged by the state's own data. Right? And so what we wanted to do, next slide, or the next one. What we wanted to do in our first meeting was to use this state-driven data, which you see a number of indicators here, or different phenomena by which you can measure environmental injustices. To sort of take that data and then show it to these regulators, right? Show it to these government officials as a way of sort of as a confrontational way to ask them to explain how it was that these neighborhoods became disadvantaged and then what they could do about it, right? And so, you know, it was a bit more confrontational. And in that meeting, though, when we hosted it, we also kind of saw that a lot of the responses were a bit lackluster, right? They didn't really respond. They didn't have very good answers to our questions. And we also received feedback from the community that our idea of generating questions from this data beforehand to then present to these regulators left a lot of y'all's concerns out, right? And so there was a lot of feedback from the community asking for more time to ask your own questions, generate your own questions. So, and one more. Okay. And so in the second time around, rather than being so data driven, we decided to switch tactics and sort of generate a theme. And so you see here, the theme was data X. And so the idea would be DAC is disadvantaged community, which is a term that regulators use. And so the idea would be to get rid of the disadvantage of the community. and then empower the communities to sort of be more interactive and take more command over their own directions and their own futures. And so Aiden's going to talk a little bit more now about the shift in our strategy and how that all worked out for us.
Yeah, so next slide. Yeah, so like James said, the biggest difference was first meeting data driven, second meeting team driven. And one of the big things we did around that was instead of scripted questions like we did the first time, which people said was a little hard to follow or didn't really reflect like what they would say, like you're just kind of reading out a list and wasn't like we as good as like a legit meeting, even though those are questions but they weren't as good. So this time they did the theme driven. This way we could, instead of having a very rigid guideline of what kind of questions you should ask, we have a big theme. And it's still important to have a big guideline idea kind of question because it's how we have more of a kind of united voice around these concerns. And that's why we did the JAX thing that James was. And to help facilitate this, we also had a brochure at the meeting that we handed out to people. They were walking to everyone. And these explain kind of what the JAX treatment was, what we were going for. Ask questions in a way that helped us question the government as to how we reduce the disadvantage. And these were those the thing, this like rough kind of thing we did in the brochures. This also we helped create one with our community research board, which some people here are on, also people on the wall at large. We are keeping it that way. So that was a really big part of the strategy this time. Secondly, for the way the meeting structure itself, this time we required in-person attendance from representatives from agencies. Because last time we had a few people at our person, but a lot of them were online. This way, by bringing them in person, more of a face-to-face interaction. It's easier to talk to them, less technology, holds them a little more accountable, and have a crowd of people faces right in front of them. So that was way more effective. And this time we actually had more diverse panelists. We had people from, I think, about 5 different agencies. Whereas the first time we had the city and I think area. So this time we had people like the Department of Toxic Substances Control, which are important to regulating clean soil, the soil we're on top of, and air. And yeah, it was just like we had all. And to kind of talk about that's what worked for this meeting. I think that worked really well. We heard good feedback on, but also there was a lot of room for improvement that will kind of keep that market to go into the next one coming up in September of the year. I think next time what we learn and install is we need stricter moderation time on this because we had some people that were talking longer, took up airtime when questions were maybe better answered by this person, but this person over here is talking for them. Because we want to take advantage of all the people we have for 1 year for everyone there, not just stuff. So next time we're going to make sure we do that. And in doing this, we'll also address another kind of something we can work on, which we didn't get to everyone's question. And we want to make sure next time we're able to get to all the questions, at least 1 question. We've also helped that by the way we did translation. We did a kind of an access, we know speaking Spanish after people spoke English, and that took a lot more time. Like tonight we have simultaneous translation thanks to Skype, and this makes it go a little bit smoother and faster. We were able to pack more in. So next time we definitely need more of that. But there was a lot of good things that happened in this meeting. And we also learned a lot. So where I think we all kind of keep these things in mind going into September next week, we will really have a successful event. Next slide. So now we also want to kind of hear from, based on the person based on your experience with stakeholder meetings, what do you think worked at these meetings? What didn't work? And where can we kind of expand next time to address these concerns? So it'd be really great to hear people's feedback here. Like this is the time we want to take it all in. And this isn't a long time, but it'd be a good time now to kind of hear people's feedback. So if you have anything, feel free.
Or if you have other general questions.
Or if there are other general questions that I need to talk about.
La presentación es excelente. Desde la perspectiva de volver, el saber que estamos ni bien, porque cada vez estamos enfermándonos. Pero desgraciadamente los responsables de un buen ambiente no nos impactan, porque nos permiten los permisos para abrir, para abrir conclusiones, para hacer lo que ellos quieren. Entonces, realmente es una tristeza que los estén enfermando y no nos universidad. Estos foros son muy importantes en la universidad de la que
Yeah, well, no, we did invite on this last one. We went in Ward. I remember what. It's the same, but we did invite Jessica Lopez, who's one of the council members, she represented that area. And she said she was busy, so like, it's definitely important to get those people there to help us to, because they are our representatives from the city. So we're really gonna have their with things. So definitely next time I want to see people like that there.
Another element of the strategy is that we're going to continue to have these meetings. And another thing that we're doing is when we are inviting these people to show up, we'll have other agencies and other professionals in that email chain. And so there's pressure when people from the California Air Resource Board see that people from AQ&D are showing up and they're not being represented. That makes them look bad. So the more participation that we get from some branches and some people in the government, it makes the absence of the others all that more notable. So the more we have these meetings, we're accruing political pressure against these people who are not participating. And so that's one of the other strategies that we're trying to, like, the more we have them and the more people who show up to them and notice that absence, we're building power over time. That was a great one. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No. Yep. Any other questions? Does anyone else? Yeah.
Y la otra es tener ese orden de tiempo hasta los, porque si no tienes que ese caos, una hora personas quieren estar hablar y hablar, sabemos que hay mucho por hablar, pero también tengo y necesitar ese tiempo de tener los tiempos. Deja que lo tienen que son a veces más intensivos.
Very good points. And that is something that we are trying to work on and figure out how to be strict but equitable, which is exactly the point that you're raising. And we are thinking that in the next meeting, we'll express at the beginning that we're looking for shorter questions and then also shorter responses And so expressing that up front to try and create this, agreement amongst the panelists. And then amongst the persons asking questions to try and keep it, to a certain time. Not because we're trying to limit you, but because we're trying to be, considerate of all the different interests in the group. But it's a very good point, and we're trying to figure it out. Yes, sir. Did you have a question?
Mi pregunta es, ¿por qué no invitan a la alcalde? Sería una buena idea para que escuchen lo que la comunidad exige.
I'm sorry. Oh,
I think we did. We did extend an invite. We did ask for a show. No. I'm gonna put in front of you.
so. And that's a good point, and I think we can't force them to show up. But what we can do is, so you can see, can we go back to showing the two images back a little bit more? Sorry, it's gonna take a second. Yes, okay, yeah, right here. So the image on the left is actually our report that we wrote on the stakeholder meeting, and this is another part of the strategy. We haven't written the report for the second meeting yet, but we will record things such as the fact that we did invite other politicians from the city council, members of the city of the city government that did not show up, right? And so recording that we did send these invitations that were not taken up by people who have a vested interest in these issues. Is another way that we can sort of apply a little bit more political pressure. The more times that they don't show up, the worse that they're going to look, right? And to their constituents and people who vote for them to be honest.
Also, something we tried out this is we talked to a reporter from the Voice of OC. This for Brandon Bauer, a lot of stakeholder meetings, and hopefully getting things like this, public media will put more pressure on these people like the mayor, city council members. So we're trying to different things to try to get this pressure on them. So we're definitely working towards that. So hopefully get turn from that next meeting. That's all. More questions? So for the first, I know the second one, we did frequency with flyer. A lot
of the neighborhoods,
especially in the
disadvantaged neighborhoods.
yeah, and in the we did this around the school. That local we flyed out over and tried to do the show. We did a ton of outreach in the things like social media, we try to do that and direct emails, so like community groups there that people will hire a politician for states, that's another number. But in terms of like public, I think our strategy for flying neighborhoods all around. And then giving your social media. But I think we really want to have a localized kind of focus because we want people from those areas should involve because these are like the disadvantaged areas. And so it's not like it's everyone can come, but we also want to focus on locals.
Another part of our plan, which didn't work exactly as planned, but being the article from Brandon Poe, the Voice of OC was supposed to come out ahead of time, and so also like serve through the public, through the media, to try and draw attention to the meeting. It ended up being like a few days before it didn't come out on schedule, but we have connections now to a journalist at Voice of OC that maybe we can mobilize to draw even more attention to the issue next time. So that's a great question. And any other questions or comments on how it went? Yes, sir.
It is been reviewing for. Yeah,
So, yeah, our grant is funded by the Department of, it's
for
California Department of Justice.
well,
Yes, sir.
I know that. Reports come out on the big California. Or the here in June. Practices that are relevant to the grant is that, but certain people out there support. Come on.
So, I mean, these. I think that. The way that we're trying to deal with it is through these partnerships with these local grassroots organizations. Who have their ears closer to the ground, right? And so the point is that, with these stakeholder meetings, we were taking the state's own data, right? And so we were really honing in on this contradiction, right? Where the state's own data was showing that these, 33 neighborhoods were disadvantaged. And yet the air quality, Southwest Air Quality Management District is still continuing to permit new facilities with emissions, right? And so how can you both tell us that these communities are environmentally distressed and simultaneously at the same time permit further facilities to pollute even more, right? And so like our strategy was to throw those contradictions back at those regulators and make them, describe it and account for that contradiction, account for that clear, seemingly impossible rational, something that's impossible to rationalize. As far as, I mean, so that's been our strategy, is to sort of bring this to the community's attention, use the community's input, and to develop our responses and bring a gathering of people to show the state that we're watching them and show the state that we aren't, that we are, if they're saying something that doesn't make sense and doesn't add up, that we're here keeping track and that we're going to hold them accountable. Do you have something to say?
You were found,
That would be a concise way to put it. So we are funded by the state, yes, in this particular grant, right? But another sort of point to possibly make on that front, this is where the role of the university partnership can also come in to play. The DOJ grant was to study non-tailpipe emissions, right? So emissions coming from vehicles based from their brakes and tires. But the Ecogovlab, which is the social science wing of this grant, through our partnership with Green, became aware of much broader and wider environmental justice concerns. And we pivoted and we've broadened that the scope of our focus. And so we actually deferred a lot of these resources away from this more narrow focus on brakes and tires to do things like the stakeholder meeting, right? And to advocate for the community that as a way of showing a true partnership with this community, these grassroots community organizations, right, to advocate for their concerns. So trying to take the resources from the state, but use them in a way that actually forwards the voices of the community partners. Other questions? So thank you all very much, and thank you for showing up to these meetings. And your presence at those stakeholder meetings is the only way that it works, right? So thank you all so much. It would be impossible without you guys. It's like, we have to step you around through the hall. Very long time. Yeah, we will. Okay, well, that's good.